Okay, hello everyone. My name is Eric Maslowski, and in this tutorial we're going to look at the various ways that you can refine your model, or more specifically how you can add details to your model. So if you load up the file that came with this tutorial and switch to the front view and maximize the view so we can get in nice and close to the nose area. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add some additional faces right in here. Now, if we have our object selected, move over to the Modify panel, click on Editable Poly, excuse me, turn on Show End Result so that we can see the effects of our symmetry modifier, and then go into Edge mode. Now, within here, we want to select the edges that follow around the outside of the nostrils. Now, just to demonstrate what we're going to do, I'm just going to select one real quick. Now, whenever you have an edge selected and you hold down Shift on the keyboard, when you transform the edge, it will create a copy. So for example, you just saw it when I moved it. I can rotate it, or I can scale it. If we take a look at this, see, I have an additional face. So what we want to do here is we want to select these 5 edges, go up to our scale tool, hold down Shift on the keyboard, and then click and drag in the center of the gizmo. And somewhere right about there. Okay, we're now going to go over to vertex mode and just start moving these around a little bit, just to space them out. Now at this point we should start considering the anatomy of the nose and the nostril area. Ideally, what we'd like to see is a nice edge flow going all the way around back to the tip of the nose and then back through, because anatomy dictates that it goes pretty much the fleshy tissue goes from the tip of the nose down and around to the edge here, then it thins out and gets tucked back into the nasal cavity. So to get this, what we're going to do is we're going to take this vertex right there and this one right below it, and we're going to attach it to this corner point. So to make our life a little bit easier, we're going to turn on Snap and just click and drag. Click and drag. Now, currently they're still separate, so we need to click and drag over those 3 vertices and then just click Weld on the right hand side. Okay, so now it's a single vertex. So we have a fairly decent flow of quads going here, but unfortunately this isn't enough detail to model a decent nose. So we need to add additional geometry all the way around. Now Max has a pretty nifty little tool called Connect, and the way that Connect works is it takes any edges that you have selected and it will create an edge that joins them. So if we go ahead and select all of these going around underneath the nose, make sure that you get all of them, even going towards the center of the face, because what we want to do is we want to connect all of these into one nice continuous loop. So on the right hand side, underneath Edit, Edges, we have the Connect button. Directly to the right of that, we have the Settings icon. And you notice that several of these other buttons have the same Settings icon. If you're not sure what a button will do, just click on the Settings, and this will bring up a nice dialog box that you can play with the results without committing. So, as you can see here, when we increase the number of segments, it determines how many times we connect our selected edges. We can also specify the spacing between our new edges, or we can specify sliding, or pretty much where those edges will appear. A value of 0 will connect them starting from the midpoint all the way around. Okay, so we want one segment, 0 pinch, 0 slide. Click OK. Alright, so we have a little bit more detail here. Now, you may notice though that we have a 5-sided polygon here that we're going to need to get rid of. So we have these edges that just stop abruptly. You really want to avoid these sort of things. These are just really create some really nasty problems with subdivision and smoothing. So what we're going to do is we're going to use another tool that comes with Max called Cut. So again, underneath the Edit Geometry section this time, click on the Cut tool, it activates, and as I drag my cursor over my mesh, you'll notice that it has 3 distinct cursor shapes. So the first one, right here, is when I have the cursor over a vertex. The next one, which has like a long line through it, is when I have my cursor over an edge. And finally, the larger box is when I have the cursor over a face. So what we want to do is we want to move the cursor over this end vertex, click once, then move the cursor to the center of this face, click again, and then drag down, or just move the mouse down to the lower edge here, and left click again. Right click when we're done. Now you'll notice that the Cut tool allows you to basically draw your edges. It's a very, very helpful tool for defining topology or changes to the topology. Instead of using Connect earlier, we could have easily just clicked all the way around to draw these edges. Now you'll notice when we did that little routine there, so we went from this edge, or this vertex, to the center, down to the edge. Notice that we created a nice little quad there, but we still have a multiple point polygon here. So if we just go from the corner up to the edge there, we now have all quads again. So you can get out of the cut mode by either clicking on the button again or right clicking. Alright, so now let's take a look at this a little bit more and move a few of our points around. So in vertex mode, I'm going to space these out just a little bit more. Okay, so as we follow this loop around, you can see it just kind of juts right down before it reaches the tip of the nose. This will create a really hard seam between the tip of the nose and the nostrils, when in actuality what we want is we want the tip of the nose to flow into the nostrils. So let's move over to our edge mode and select this edge which seems to be blocking our path into the tip of the nose. We can hit backspace on the keyboard and that will remove an edge. If we hit delete, you can see the difference. If we hit backspace, it keeps the surface there. So now if we just go back to our cut tool and join up upper vertex to the one below the tip of the nose, there we go. We now have our edges flowing wonderfully all the way around for both levels. And we have all quads. So we're in very good shape here. So if we jump back to vertex mode and we position a few of these just to space them out a little bit more. Next what we have to do is we have to close this little gap right here. Because when we go to smooth it, we don't want this to be, showing through to the background. We basically want to give the illusion of an actual nasal cavity. So in this case, we could, use the shift key while in edge mode to drag one of these edges up to the top there, but we're actually going to create the polygons by hand. So if we go over to the polygon mode, right here, and underneath Edit Geometry section, there's a Create button. So if we left click on that, you see that all of our vertices pop back up. And what we can do is we can basically just draw, just draw our polygon that we want. So we left click on one vertex, left click on the other, left click, just work our way all the way around back to where we started. And you can see it created a nice polygon right there. So let's just do it for the last one. There we go. And then just click on the Create button again to get out of it. Now, let's step forward a little bit in time after we've moved some of these around to give it a little bit of a better illusion of a nose. So if we jump out of the front view and zoom into our perspective view, you can see how it's quite flat, not how a nostril should be looking. So what we're going to do is we're going to just jump ahead a little bit to where some of these points better define the nose. Okay, so I just did some very, very quick, not even close to final adjustments to the nostrils. What we're going to do now is we're going to create our nasal cavity. Now we're not going to create a full nasal cavity because that might be overkill unless you need an animation that flies right up in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a nice view of underneath our nose, and we're going to move over to the polygon mode. Now you may still have your polygons selected, but if not, just select the two that kind of represent the whole of the nose. Now that we have those two selected, what we're going to do is we're going to bring them up into the nose, or into the rest of the head. Now if we just drag these up, see what happens? We basically lose a lot of our extra geometry or edges that we have. So instead of just clicking and dragging it up, we're going to use the Extrude tool. So if we click on the Settings button directly to the right of Extrude, you can see that by default it gives it a positive value. So it shot out pretty far out of the nose. So we're just going to decrease this and instead give it a negative value so that it goes up into the head instead of coming out of it. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'm going to click OK. And we're now going to just position it so it's a little bit more natural. So bring it in a little bit and then bring it back. Because after all, you know, the nasal cavity goes right in through there. Alright, so now if we zoom out a little bit, turn on our Turbo Smooth, you can see we still need to do some work on our nostrils themselves, but we have a nice cavity there and a nice blend between the tip of the nose and the nostrils. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to where I have the nostrils how I want them. Okay, so there we go. This is pretty much how I wanted the nose to look. So we got some nice navel cavities going on underneath. Try to give your nostrils a nice teardrop appearance as they lead into the tip of the nose. Looks good from the top view, from the side, and so on. Okay, so that'll do it for this one. You can use the same techniques to add the lips for the mouth, add additional detail around the eyes, or even if you want, continue on the rest of the head. Now with the rest of the head, we'll be taking a look at adding the back of the skull in another tutorial. But otherwise, feel free to explore. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or post on the forums. Thank you.